Whereas Jamie to go, buzz.
Should hit the buzzer.
Hi.
Hi.
You all know me. I'm saying you all know Di. That's not
The quiet one. Yep.
This is the inside of a hive. It's what it sounds like. It's pretty cool. A lot of research being done on bee frequencies and healing, both for the bees themselves and for humans and stuff. But I find it just interesting. Just listen to that. Yeah, I know in the book they talked about the queen bee being at a G sharp.
A flat.
Same.
Yes.
It's not all consistent though. Bees change their frequency depending on season of the year, time of day, the amount of light, smoke and fires, whatever, if they have something to say to each other. But they do communicate. They used to think bees were deaf, but they are not deaf at all. They have certain frequency ranges and they communicate with each other. So it's really kind of a fascinating thing. So, okay. What's all the buzz about? Basically, here's what we're going to talk about. We have, basically, I'll go to the cartoon.
I don't know. I want to do that one.
Okay. Okay. All right. Go to that one. Go to full screen and play, or go to play in full screen. There we go. Yeah, it would be nice if it was this easy. Does something really do it? Yeah, they sort of got the concept of a honeycomb. Yeah, sort of, you know. Yeah, give me a second. There we go. Now kill it. Okay, let the slideshow. And the slide can go. There you go. All right.
No. That's one over.
Well, that's fine. As long as it goes. Oh,
There.
There we go.
there you go. Okay. Basically, we're going to split this into kind of 3 sections, 4 sections, I guess.
If we can do it
You see,
quickly.
all kinds of things up here. This is all beekeeper stuff. And this is one of those things that, well, it'll help you get a visualization of what they were actually talking about when you read that book and what a Langstroth hive is and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to kind of go through that, but we'll kind of save that for the end. We're going to give a talk about bees and what they are, and we're going to talk about planting for pollinators, and we're going to talk about cooking with honey. Because there's some things you need to do when you cook with honey. When we get to planting for pollinators, we've even got some pollinator seeds, okay, some flower seeds, so if you want to grab some up here, and it's real cute. I don't know who got those actually.
Jamie and I got them.
Yeah, it was really nice. Anyway, they're non-GMO Rocky Mountain and Berkeley seeds, and anyway, you can plant those, and there's instructions on there, and we'll talk a little bit about what might be in them when we get to some of the planting with pollinators part. But just about some bee facts and some things about bees. Bees pollinate a lot of things, and we're going to actually learn about pollination and how that occurs here in a minute. But a lot of things would not be around if it wasn't for bees. I know that they truck bees around and they make sure that those bees can pollinate things like almond crops and stuff like that in California, and they move them, as the weather changes, they move the entire truckloads of bees that are acting as pollinators, they move them south, and sometimes they actually end up here, and people buy those for their own backyard beehives and stuff. But there's three kinds of bees, basically. There's the queen, there's the worker. They're both females. The workers aren't really fertile females, but they're female nonetheless. And they have drones, which are not female. Okay, drones are the males that the queens can mate with. Talk a little bit about that in a minute. Right here. The purpose of a drone. The queen's mating flight. Let's say a hive has a new queen. The queen flies out when they hatch, and they go way up in the air. 500,000 feet, huge amount. Okay, way up there. And then that only happens once in her life. And they have this little party up there with all of these drones that gather around and fly around and mate with the queen. Oh, she has a real festival. From 5 to 45 different drones inseminate this queen. Then she comes back down in.
She's tired.
Crawls into the hive. Crawls into the hive and never sees the light of day again unless they split her swarm. And which is fascinating. So she just kind of tools around in here laying eggs and getting tended to. It's kind of cool. All right. The worker bees, they clean the hive. They act as undertaker and they act as nurses. When a bee hatches out of its little egg, they come out of the egg and according to their age, they have a duty. The youngest ones aren't going to be the ones that are strong enough to go out and fly and forage for stuff. So when they come out, they start some of the custodial duties, some of the nursing duties, and by nursing duties I mean they have to feed the eggs and the babies as they develop. So they'll do these in-hive duties first. Then as they get stronger, they'll start acting as undertakers, and when I mean undertakers, a bee usually lasts in the summertime only about 30 days, a worker bee. Now a queen can live 4 to 5 years, but a little worker bee in the summer only lasts inside that little hive about 30 days. So he's got to do the entire life cycle, or she has to do this entire life cycle in 30 days. So they go through all the process of being nurses, and then the undertakers, because they die, the workers have to kick them off the porch onto the ground, get rid of them. So they clean up, they do all the cleanup duty.
They're very tidy.
Oh, they are tidy. And then, anyway, then after that, when they're a little stronger and toward the end of their 30 days, maybe 12 days before they die, they go out and search for food, gather pollen, gather nectar, do all that kind of stuff, and then come back. The queen, what does the queen do all day? Lays 600 to 800, up to 1,500 eggs each day during her 3 to 4 year lifetime, sometimes 5. Sometimes you can get 5 years out of them. But they're busy laying eggs in the little hive things. And I'm going to show you a little hive thing where they do that.
An active hive can contain 30 to 40,000 bees. So that's why she's so busy.
Yeah.
And she has to keep replenishing the supply of those that only have a life cycle of 30 days, 30 to 45 days.
This is a what's called a Langstroth hive. That's the man who invented it and developed it. There are all kinds of different kinds of hives. There's tubular hives, and then there's top bar hives, and there's AZ hives. And anyway, this is the most common, especially for backyard beekeepers. On this, when you get a hive set, you get, this is a just a plastic
Blank.
blank. It's a base, and it is coated with a kind of wax, and it gives them a template to work from. And this is comb that's been pulled out of the, off of that frame. And so this is what they lay the eggs in and the honey in. And this is so fascinating because each one of those little cells is so perfect. It's such a perfect copy of the one right next to it. And here's what's really cool is each one of those cells is just about at a 15-degree angle. And bees are smart enough, well, instinctive enough, but smart enough to know to put the honey in that 15-degree slope so it doesn't all run out. So it's really, they're just fascinating little creatures. Okay, one. Honeybees can fly at 15 miles an hour. They just kind of average that, soaring around. Actually, they can do a little bit more than that, but they can. Honeybees' wings stroke at 11,400 times a minute. And that's rough, because the flapping of their wings determines the frequency at which you can hear them. But yeah, it ranges, a whole lot of different ranges and sounds come out of them, and that's based on how fast they do their wings. But basically it's 11,000 a second. So bees are the only insect in the world that makes food people can eat. Like that. Honey contains enzymes, water, minerals, and vitamins.
Kind of like vitamin or vitamin.
Yeah, vitamin or vitamin, right? Okay, some honey looks dark. In a little bit, we're going to have you taste some honey. This is commercial honey. It's called ambrosia honey, which we know is honey.
It's 100%.
It's 100% honey, and this is our own honey. And you can see the difference in the color. And sometimes you get this real light in here. Sometimes it'll be even darker than this. Here in the valley, we used to have a Spanish Peaks beekeeping club, and COVID killed that. But yeah, there's one in Trinidad now. Pueblo? Yeah, there's a Pueblo beekeepers. Don't they have a Trinidad?
I think people from Trinidad are coming up to.
All the way up to
okay,
Pueblo.
yeah. Anyway, we used to have a honey tasting once a year from everybody who did their own backyard bees and kept bees. One year we got some, two stories. Jim Connolly, who was a good beekeeper around here, brought some back from a trip to Africa. And it was black honey. It was like
Motor oil.
motor oil. And, oh, it was awful. I mean, we tasted it. It was the worst honey in the world. The bad honey around here is from over in the valley, salt cedar, the trees along the
Rio Grande.
whatever it is, river. Along the river over there, they make this honey, and it's dark. It's like molasses, but it is also horrible. It's really bad. So you could taste the things in there. After the fires in 2018, there was a difference in the honey. Big difference. It was really a smoky flavor, and the comb that I showed you earlier, the comb that they pull was really, really, really dark. Yeah, and because this is really the liver of the whole bee experience is the comb, because it filters out all kinds of stuff. So.
But that also leads to the taste wheel.
Oh yeah, I can do the taste wheel now. Yeah. University of California, Davis. They also do this for wine. So if you're a real wine snob, you can get a little chart that describes the flavors. Well, if you're a honey snob, they've developed one for honey too. So it's kind of a comparison between the color of a honey. It's a color wheel, but it falls into categories. So you have spicy, fruity, floral, woody, herbaceous, animal, earthy. I think one of the funniest things on here is the animal one, because if it tastes like dog or goat or cat pee, seriously, it's as descriptors. The worst one I think is locker room. actually locker room. So anyway, so y'all can take a look at this, but we're gonna do our own little honey tasting after a while, so you can see if you can tell the difference between this commercial honey and the honey that is from around here. Okay, honey's flavored by the types of flowers that the bees go out and collect flowers. We have a lot of flowers in our yard, tons of plants. We'll go through some of the things that we keep. We try to make it easy for the bees so they can, you know, fall out of bed in the morning and go get their breakfast right away. Bees travel a long ways. We know that they go down to the river to get water from us. Now we live on Oak, so they just go over to the river a couple blocks. They go further than that. They can go up to 5 miles. And we know that bees are distinctive. When you get bees, depending on the breed of the bee, that there's different colorations and stuff, but you can start recognizing your own bees around town. People say, oh, your bee was over here, your bees are over here, and yeah, probably. So anyway, honey does not spoil. If not exposed to the air, it will never spoil. Is the next one about Egypt?
No, that's further down.
Oh, okay, all right. It will never spoil at all. Bee stings, I've been stung. Generally not by my own bees though. I think I've been stung once, and that's just because they get caught. You know, they get stuck in your suit or whatever. A worker bee will die after it stings. The worker bee's stinger has barbs on it. And so when it goes in, this is gross, pulls part of its guts out. Well, the part of its guts that it pulls out is a little sac, and that sac will keep pulsating if you don't get that stinger out, and it keeps putting it there, so it just keeps at it. The queen stinger is smooth, and so if you get stung by a queen, it isn't going to continually put that there. She doesn't die because it doesn't rip her guts out. The stinger is smooth, and it just usually is used to kill other queens. That's a whole other topic too. When a hive gets old, the workers decide when it's time, you gotta go. And so they will start the process of creating new queens. And what happens is they will lay what are called queen cells, usually toward the bottom, but you'll see these things start to protrude on the bottom of these things, and then they may end up hanging down a little bit. That's a queen cell. And the queen cells have potential queens in them. And the worker bees are building this queen by this special enzyme in the worker that's injected into the cell that develops this queen. Well, once a new queen comes out, the new queen generally will have this big battle with the old queen, mostly off the old queen, and then the new queen has to go through with her stinger and sting every one of the queen cells that are left, kill all the rest of the queens. So she's the only one there. Okay? So that's why she has this smooth stinger. Evolution's fascinating, you know? Okay, in the wintertime, it appears dormant, but it really isn't. They're buzzing around, they don't hibernate, they're just buzzing around in there. They have to keep that hive, even if it's 2 below outside, they have to keep it 95 to 98 degrees inside. And there's this cluster around the queen, and the cluster actually kind of rotates around the queen. So it isn't always the same workers in there beating their wings, and they beat their wings to heat it up, and heat up the queen to that temperature, and they rotate in and out, and they keep her at that constant temperature.
What's the coldest temperature they can tolerate? You know?
I don't know.
You mean like outside ambient temperature?
Yeah.
I don't know, they survive here. You know, and we've been, what, 15 below years? Yeah. A lot of people wrap their hives, some people don't. Just kind of depends.
So the temperature of 95 degrees, is that just like in the center of the hive or throughout?
Yeah, it's around the queen.
Just around the queen. She's the one that has to be kept at that temperature.
Everything slows down in the wintertime. The workers will live longer because they're not out killing themselves, they're not out, they literally work themselves to death. But they're not doing that so they can last a couple, 3 months maybe through the wintertime. So the laying slows down, the working slows down, they live off their honey stores during the
Or
wintertime.
supplement food. In the summertime, again, the hive is always at 95 to 98 degrees. So if it starts to get hotter, you'll see what's called bearding. And that's where the bees go to the outside of the hive and do an evaporative cooling thing
Yeah.
on the outside. Again, it's to maintain that internal temperature.
Yeah, generally that's not what's called swarming, which is when part of the hive decides to split and go somewhere else because it's too crowded or whatever. A lot of people think that that's swarming because they'll see this big lump of bees hanging off the front. It's not, it's they're cooling the hive down, and which is, they know what to do. They find their own hive. We have, at our house, 3 hives, one right next to the other. They know where their own hive is. They smell it. Every morning they get up and reorient themselves. So there's a couple of workers that go out and fly around and, okay, they get their bearings and reorient everything. And they go down on their little porch or in the bottom and then do a little dance and they tell everybody, okay, we're all cool. We didn't move, off we go. And then they start foraging. If you ever want to move a hive, even if it's a few feet, you have to do it at night. Because when they get up in the morning, they'll reorient. If you do it during the day, the ones that are out will not exactly know where it was and can get lost. So, so even if it's just a few feet or whether it's moving it across state. Anyway, so they know their own hive. The queen has the odor that attracts them. They have these pheromones, and that's the one that determines their own hive, and they all know that. So they do a dance. Bees dance. And there are all kinds of YouTube videos that describe this. They dance around in certain directions and they certain number of times. There's a whole code that tells the bees where to go to get their food source. They send out these scouts and they find the food source and they come back and tell everyone else where it is and they find it. This just happens to be, we're going to talk about poppies. But that's one of our poppies, and those are a couple of my girls there doing their thing. So,
Yeah, you can see one, of course, that's right in the center, but then there's a bee butt hanging off on this left side, and then right there, and then one little higher up.
Yeah.
And what we found, okay, we're easily entertained. We can go out there. And when you see the bees on these oriental poppies especially, those pestles on the inside just vibrate like heck, and they're dancing themselves. So it's very entertaining to watch.
Really cool. Yeah.
So, okay, where am I going now?
It's a big discovery.
Are you all done?
Uh-huh.
Escape? Kill it?
Killed dead.
Okay. Minimize that. And then go to the next one. Okay. And go. Okay.
Okay, here's the planting part.
The planting. Here's why it's important to plant for pollinators. Wildflower gardens are great up here. The USDA, the latest is 2024, 50% of colonies collapse in the United States a year.
Because,
why?
Well, we're getting there.
Yeah. Colony collapse disorder. It's a result of a combination of factors. They are widespread use of pesticides, that's number 1.
And that was also covered in the book.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Loss of habitat, climate change, and diseases. Now, up here, we have several things that affect bee health as far as whether they're either pests, parasites, or diseases. They get a disease called foul brood up here, and boy, you can smell that. You open a hive and it's just awful smell. There's varroa mites, which are little bitty bugs that, yeah, parasitize them.
And then, didn't you say, Malia, that there was a fungus? Or was it the foul brood? Probably.
You have to destroy the hive if you get
Yes.
foul brood.
Yep.
I mean, like burn the whole thing, right?
Yeah, just get rid of it.
I know several of the beekeepers that lost a huge amount of bees had their bees analyzed, and they had a virus.
Yeah. Things move around, it's like any other critter, things get to them. But the worst thing is the pesticide thing. There are some, can you go back to the previous slide?
I could.
In the pesticide thing, there are, now you don't have the ability to do much about your next door neighbor, or an HOA, or whatever. But you do have the ability, if there's widespread spraying from trucks that a municipality takes care of, or the state takes care of, you can get yourself registered on a state website, and they are supposed to watch for that and not even go near the area within a mile, so for whatever that's worth. Bees are considered livestock, and so that's one of the reasons they have to take care of that. They're categorized as livestock. The year that we did have a bear get in and trash our whole apiary, we got paid back by the state. You file a claim and they'll pay you for each hive that you lost. You have to have them come out and look at it and make sure you've done the right things that might mitigate that. And we do. I'll talk about those later. But yeah, we took care of that, and we got paid back by the state to reestablish the apiary, so. But anyway, the pesticide, what question?
About climate change, what are the elements in climate change? Because they can tolerate variations in temperature. What are the things that they're finding about climate change that really affect?
Well, it's the variations in temperature that affect what grows. And what grows,
Feeds
Okay.
down.
yeah, it puts them off and whatever. Just as a little bit of an aside, the best thing you can do is not spray or dig your dandelions, because it's one of the first things in the spring that come out, and it's one of the first things that bees can eat. Now around here, they hit the trees, they hit the aspen trees. When the sap starts flowing, they'll get into that, and that's one of the first ones to come out. And then they'll start hitting the sap that flows through some of the other ones. When you see them out on a nice day, they'll be doing, but they'll spot those dandelions. I was doing some remodel work. This is great. And I had my
What was that?
DeWalt chop saw, and sitting in the bed of the truck on the tailgate cutting wood. Now, DeWalt yellow is pretty specific. It was attracting my bees like crazy in the early spring. There weren't many flowers out, and I had, I'd have to get up and do it right away, or do it after dark, because during the day they would just swarm that saw because it had yellow on it. It was, yeah, fascinating.
But
It's what you learn.
in 2018, when we had the fire, we had a problem because, show them the smoker, just so that they see what the idea is. A smoker is used to calm your bees, so that when you open the hive, that they don't get like crazed thinking you're a bear coming in. So smoke will drive them down. What happened when we had the fire, the first thing we noticed was it depressed the light. So that was one thing that was hard on the bees. But the other thing was, it made them very sluggish because they were constantly in a state of calm. So they weren't getting out and working as much. And as a result, we lost 2 of our 3 hives that year. They did not make it through the winter because they weren't able to gather enough for food stores. But again, we had also noticed it in our garden that we had vigorous plants, then we had the smoke growth, which was next to nothing, and then after the smoke cleared, we had healthy plants again. So it was like boom, boom, boom.
This bare spot in the pepper plants, it was weird. It just-
So it's amazing what things will affect your bees. And again, when Sam mentioned that bees are transported across the country to California to help with the pollinating the almond trees especially. But in the transport process, quite often, those trucks are hijacked. And the stores for bees on the inside are robbed out. Because it's such a money-making industry.
Yeah.
And it's a specialty niche, you know, or niche, I guess. Okay, fine. Moving on.
Anyway, when you put all those things together, it's really tough on bees, so it's up to the populations are getting better in certain instances, but it's kind of up to the backyard beekeeper to keep the bees going and the pollinators going. So a couple of things we're going to talk about is the evolution of bees and flowers and the symbiosis and the symbiotic relationship between those, and what grows here, and how to extend that season and how much time it'll take. So go ahead.
Now, this is the thing.
Yes, this is that thing.
Am I just go to
No,
it?
minimize it. Oh, no, yeah, go ahead and just control it. Control it. Hold control.
Oh, okay, because we can't do anything without a commercial.
Sorry. Pause that. Escape it. Then we're going to go back to this.
This buzzing is the simplest password to a lock. What this bumblebee is after is flower. Bumblebees eat pollen. It's high in protein. But the flower doesn't want to give it to just anyone, so it hides it away in those bright yellow anthers. For a flower, that's unusual. Most flowers keep their pollen on the outside of the anther, which is the male part of the flower. Pollen is basically sperm for plants. Most flowers make sugary nectar too. They use it as bait to attract bees and other pollinators, which get coated in pollen on the way. And since bees are messy, they inadvertently scatter some of that pollen onto the female part of the next flower they visit. That's how most flowers have sex. But this type of flower doesn't offer nectar. The only way to get to its pollen is through those tiny pores at the ends. But the bumblebee knows just what to do. It wraps its legs around the flower and bites down on the anthers, that male part of the flower. See those wings shaking? Normally the bumblebee uses those powerful muscles to flap its wings. That's what makes the buzzing sound when they fly. But here, those muscles vibrate its whole body, so hard and fast that it makes a louder, higher-pitched buzz. This vibration shakes up the pollen trapped inside the anthers until it spews out all over the bumblebee. It's called buzz pollination, and you don't need a bumblebee to do it. work will do. The bumblebee glues the pollen down into sticky sacks on its legs, carries it back to the hive. Only a few types of pollinators, like bumblebees, are capable of buzz pollination. Honeybees can't do it. This field is kind of a free-for-all. Think Las Vegas buffet. Tons of food, but long lines, lots of competition. Buzz pollination is more like a private club. By only permitting pollinators that know the secret knock, the flower ups the chances that its pollen will end up on flowers from the same club, the same species. The bumblebee, well, sure, it has to work a little harder, and there's no sweet nectar, but it's a reliable pollen stash that almost no one else has access to. Tomatoes, potatoes, blueberries. All of these need buzz pollination to reproduce. Much of the food we eat owes its existence to that buzz. Our secret password here at Deep Look, I'll be honest, is the subscribe button.
Okay. I always thought that was fascinating, just watch that kind of pollination. And, even within the bee communities themselves, there's different ways of doing pollination. So what do bees and flowers look for in a relationship? Okay. We got that it's a way to continue your own kind. There's food in the form of nectar, pollen, and the enzymes within those feed the bees and create the honey and do all the good stuff. They specialize in the kind of pollinator that they want to crawl around in. So the flowers evolve and the bees evolve, and they cross or not as appropriate. So we have pollination syndrome, and that is suites of flower traits that have evolved in response to natural selection imposed by the different kinds of bees or different kinds of pollinators. So those traits are flower shape, size, color, odor, the reward type, the amount of pollen and the amount of nectar, nectar composition, the timing of the flowering, etc. This will lead us into the kinds of things that we plant here and why. So tubular red flowers, stuff that hummingbirds like. Usually you'll see these red things. Bees don't particularly like the color red. They're really not, they're kind of dissuaded by the color red. But there are pollination syndromes like that, the types, all the different categories that they fall in, are types of convergent evolution. Okay, this is the kinds of, and it's all sciencey, but the kind of bugs, like beetles, like things white or drab, sweet scent, open bowl shape. Flies are variable. Carrion and dung flies, like dead things. Bees like variable color, but no pure red, but they like that sweet scent. Hawk moths, we have a lot of those around here. White or pale green, strong sweet scent. So you can see that there's different things that attract different kinds of critters for that pollination.
And yes, bats are pollinators.
Yes. So bees have a wide color preference, but lower preference for red flowers. They like sweet scented flowers with open or tubular petals. Things they can get into, often with prominent anthers, like the poppy. It's flat and open and attracts them, and they love that. Hawk moths, white or pale green, and this is flies and carrion and dung flies. Okay, specialization is the key to an efficient system. Here's what I really found fascinating. There's an electricity between honeybees and flowers. One has one charge and one has the other. bees carry a positive, flowers hold negative. When they get together and a bee flies around and digs out all the nectar and pollen that it's going to do, it reduces the amount of charge, of that negative charge in the flower. And when it does that, the next bee to come along knows this has already been visited. So they don't waste a whole lot of time there. So for honeybees, things that are flat, they love things that are flat. They don't like to crawl in and
Yeah,
out.
well, we have examples.
We have examples. They like aromatic flowers, things that are pollen and nectar rich and bright colors. Other than red, okay?
Well, they like red, but it's not their first choice.
Yeah, bright red, yeah, that's not their first choice. These are things that will grow here. Bachelor's buttons, cornflower, cosmos. They really like cosmos. Okay, daisies. They like daisies. And oriental poppy. California poppies. The herbs they like. Oh, we could just list these. Basil, chives, oregano, sage, thyme,
This
usual-
is where that came out of.
all the usual culinary thymes. Shrubs, hummingbird mint. They really like hummingbird mint. You'll find bees on there and hummingbirds, so it's a nice pollinator thing. And there's some of the requirements. You can look these up. When you find this zone number, you're going to have to make sure that you have at least zone 5 here. The zones are misleading because the zones are actually deal with the average first and last frost. It doesn't mean a whole lot here. So it's really maybe a first indicator of what you might need to look for. Because even though we're like 4.5 or 5 here, sometimes it feels like 3. So catmint, they love catmint, all over them. Cotoneaster, heather, lavender, lead plant, Russian sage, salvia. We have most of these things in our yard. Trees, apple trees, they love cherry trees, they love peach trees, they love plum trees, they love aspen. Those little things that hang down there, yeah, they really are attracted to those hanging downs,
Yeah.
a technical term. Cedar trees, more over in the valley than here. Cottonwood trees. A few veg, broccoli, green beans, cucumbers, peas, squash. They like all that good stuff.
There you go.
Okay, put that one away and let's cook with some honey.
Hey, let's.
Escape. Minimize. Okay, let's cook with
Yeah.
honey.
There.
All right.
Oh, wait, you know what?
Yeah.
We all need to revisit.
We all need to revisit the bee thing. You gonna go there? Remember Romper Road? Do
Bumper
bees.
stopper, bumper boo.
You could even go in the grocery store and buy a Doobie orange juice. I always wondered if there was Doobie grape juice. This is kind of interesting. In 1977, the opening game of the baseball season was stopped by a bunch of bees, and they had to call a beekeeper to remove the bees. Beekeepers are great. If you ever run across a swarm, call a beekeeper. Okay, you'll know what a swarm is. They're usually in a tree, they're hanging in a big deal. I'll tell them my story in a minute.
Okay.
The beekeeper generally will come if it's convenient and they can get to it, either reaching it or a ladder, and cut off the branch and hold the branch, and then either get a big box or a garbage can or something and go ka-chunk, and all the bees will drop. including the queen, into that container, seal the container, and take it home and do what they can do with it.
Rehive it.
Over by the Methodist Church, around the corner going down Virginia, in the driveway into Janine's garage, there's a little bitty tree. It was surrounded by chicken wire. And this was a couple years ago? Yeah, a couple years ago now. There was a swarm there, a swarm crawling on the ground and up the chicken wire. And I got a call, and matter of fact, I left the library to go get it. And I took a box like this, right here, with the top on it, and I went over there and I set it down. Bees crawling up, I set it down right there in front of them. They turned around, and once one or two went in, they all started following, and just left it there, and went back that night and gathered it up, and all the bees were inside.
At dusk, it was
At dusk.
It was full, because their preference is to be someplace dark.
Yeah.
And again, they sent the scouts to check out the hive first, to make sure it was a safe environment before they went back, gave the signal, and then enough of them had to get into the hive first before they could move the queen. So it was, again, a fascinating thing to watch, that they all knew what they were doing, just leave them alone, just let them do it, you know. And I think it took a total of 4 hours for them to make the complete move.
Yeah.
And then again, because we moved them at dusk, when they woke up in the morning, they then reorientated themselves to where they were. So that hive thrived.
Yeah, they did good. Okay, next one. Oh, the biggest beehive on record was in a 150-foot eucalyptus tree in Australia, and it was 36 feet in height, 21 feet in diameter, and weighed 10 tons.
Wow.
7,000 pounds of honey. That's huge. I mean, that's obviously been there for a while.
Tells you how strong a eucalyptus tree is too, you know?
Yeah.
What happened to the hive when they took all the honey? How'd they get the honey?
I don't know. That was just off of a
Or
wall or
did they have to
something.
destroy the hive to
They
get?
probably destroyed the hive to get to that.
Well,
They might have been.
yeah.
Or they just started cutting, hacking at it, you know.
Yeah.
You can take a bunch of home honey and they'll just regenerate it.
Okay, 1 or 2 teaspoons of honey taken at every meal will provide the nutritional catalyst necessary to speed up the handling of the food by the body. It helps digestion, truly it does, and it helps the metabolization of different things. But it calms your gut. I know I've taken honey when it's, you know, okay, take a spoonful of honey. Helps the medicine go down, you know. Anyone get that?
Yes.
Spoonful of honey, medicine go down? Okay.
Yes.
It contains minerals, 7 of the B vitamin complex, ascorbic acid, amino acids, and enzymes. It's good for you. It's great for you. Almost all Egyptian medicines contain honey. Honey unearthed after 33 centuries was still edible. It's because it didn't have air getting to it. Yeah. Even when you get honey in little jars like this, I mean, this lasts forever. It may crystallize, and then you know it's good, pure honey, if it crystallizes. When it crystallizes, like in our own jars, you could put it in a water bath, but you've got to be very, very, very careful. We found that the best thing to do is, I have this thing for making bread called a bread proofer, which you can control the temperature on to help yeast rise. As long as you don't exceed the temperature at which it would kill the yeast, but make it warm enough, it will melt this and turn it back into liquid.
So in case anyone really wants to know, you don't want to heat the honey beyond 112. Because if it'll bloom yeast, so like if you're making anything with a yeast dough, your temperature, water temperature is usually 108 to 112. Is perfect temperature for blooming. Yes?
I have a jar that I forgot about, that a friend gave me from West Virginia. It has comb in it. It's
Mhm.
dark, beautiful honey. It's sealed in a jar.
Yes?
I bet it's 20 years old. I forgot all about it. Is it still good, do you think?
Yes,
Oh, it's,
absolutely.
yeah, it'll last, it'll last.
And-
forever.
Quart jar?
It
and-
won't expire.
And it's probably not changed color.
No, I don't think it's changed, no. And it's not, it didn't crystallize either. It's in the jar
Yeah.
sealed. It didn't crystallize.
Yeah, there's no air in
Right.
it, which is, yeah.
So there you go.
If it crystallizes in yogurt maker's another good thing to put it in. Just something that won't kill the yeast, but heat it up. Okay, we've already talked about how fast they grow. Yeah, it's difficult to find a beekeeper with kidney trouble, bad eyesight, bad complexion, lameness, cancer, or paralysis. Honey is so good for you. It's, anyway. So here's what it contains. Water, fruit sugar, grape sugar, sucrose, dextrins and gums, and ash, which is all those trace minerals. And that's all dependent upon the environment that they gather their stuff in. Foreign bacteria cannot live in raw, uncooked honey. You can put it on wounds. They used to use honey, especially in World War I. It was a big wound dresser, was honey. Minor burns, keeps air away, prevents bacteria from getting in there, all kinds of stuff. Symbols of the Jewish New Year used during holiday meals as a gift for bread and signify hope and sweetness for the coming year. Why honey over refined sugar? Because refined sugar ain't so refined. It has no culture. Culture. It has no culture. Honey is a pure, natural, pre-digested food. The body can easily assimilate it. It doesn't have to struggle to assimilate the sugars in the honey. Anyway, go ahead. Pre-digested, little additional digestion is necessary, so less insulin is necessary. So absorption and the energy boost resulting occurs quickly. Athletes use it. It can be a fast-acting stimulant too. Okay. Cooking rules. You can talk about this
Why?
because you cook more with it than I do.
It's about all I cook with. Well, I shouldn't say that. But I know I'm cooking for myself or someone else and I use honey. And I use honey a lot in cooking. But I do use sugar if I know I'm making it for people who can have sugar. So, the oven temp, it tends to burn easily. Again, if you're using honey in cooking, you are at that point destroying the health benefits to it. Because whatever you're cooking it at is going to be higher than the 108, 112 range. So you will have killed the enzymes in it. But it's still better to have the honey over refined sugar. Play with it, you know? You can't go wrong. And you can control the amount of sweetness with the honey. I mean, they say for every cup of honey used to reduce the amount of liquid in the recipe. No, that's too much fooling around.
You just feel it. You just feel it.
Yeah, you just work with it and then you, over time, know what to do with it.
Yeah, I've started in a few things that I cook. I've started with an equal crossover. If it calls for a cup of sugar, I use a cup of honey. Then you're going to want to cut that back a little bit. But
Because the
also,
honey's going to be
honey's
sweeter.
going to taste a little sweeter, taste a little different than that sugar, but it's you handle it differently.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just one?
Just, this is
Okay.
my last question.
Oh, no, please no.
Have any people ever had allergies to honey? Has that ever been documented?
Not that I know
I
of.
don't know.
Here's the other question. They say don't give kids under 1
Yes.
because of botulism?
No, it's because the enzymes that are in the honey, their systems have not developed enough to be able to process and assimilate the enzymes. So it's not botulism
Okay.
that they would be subject to. But it also can be used for your pets. I would not go overboard using it with them because you don't want to have or create a potential diabetic situation with an animal. But we did have a diabetic cat at one point, and when she would start to go into shock, that was the first thing to do, because that's the first thing they do at the vet is they do a drip on her. So, try to bring her. Yep. So,
If you ever get into hives, never, ever, ever go back. Go back. Do not feed your bees cooked honey, because it does this chemical thing. After it's cooked, it forms that big long thing there. Hydroxymethyl furfural.
Furfural.
Yeah, furfural. Anyway, it creates that, and you can give your honeybees gut ulcerations. So you never feed back honey that's been cooked or dealt with that way at all. And the same thing is, I'll go on to the next one. I think it's in there. Yeah, if you use heat to separate wax from honey, don't feed the resulting honey back to your bees, or don't let them use the wax. Occasionally, if a beehive dies, occasionally the bees from this hive will go over to this hive and rob out the honey stores that are left in there. They'll also take some of the wax to make their own wax with. I mean, it's free for the taking, so why not? So don't feed the hot processed anything back to the bees, whether it's wax or honey. Only use cold processed unadulterated honey. And we'll talk about how we get honey out of this in a minute.
you're about to talk about it because that's the
Is
end
that
of it. Yep.
Okay, all right, kill it. What I want to do is talk a little bit about all the stuff you're seeing up here, including Ebenezer over there. Guy got cued and put his hands up here on This is just a typical, easy, simple bee suit. It's just a hat, a veil, okay, it's called a veil, and it's got a little black thing so you can see through it better, and this just goes over your entire head, down, and across your shoulders. The white thing, bees don't particularly like white. If they see you in dark clothing, they think you're a bear, and they get fussy. $6 at Home Depot. It's a painter clothes. Sometimes I will go out and I won't put any of that on. But I will use gloves, okay? Leather gauntlets, they're made out of leather, they're really, really thick and heavy, and you can see I've still got propolis and stuff on there that make them look like they're sticky and dirty, but they're not. That's just bee stuff, from the frames. Anyway, I will always use gloves. And then inside this box, this is all the important stuff. I'm going to start over here. About, 15, 20 years ago? 15, 18 years ago, when we were still living in Castle Rock. Our two boys decided that I needed something to do. So they got me a hive kit. So I get the hive kit, and I thought, okay, that's cool, because I'll learn all about the construction of hives and put the thing together. It was all pre-cut and all that stuff. And so then I didn't get to do it right away because we were planning on moving down here. So came down here and got bees, okay? That's the easiest way to get into it, is kind of be forced. When you order bees, there's two ways to order bees. The first one is what's called a package. And you'll get a little box like this, and it will be full of bees, maybe 10,000. Just buzzing away. They're all workers, maybe a couple of drones, whatever they get in there, except the queen. The queen comes in her own little cage, like that, okay? And she is twice as big as all of those. Big thing. and usually has a little dot painted on it. Because you can handle these bees. I mean, honeybees are really docile for the most part, right, Elena? Yeah. I mean, you pick them up, you handle them, yeah, they're good. It's only if you make them mad.
Only if you don't. If
If
you
you
swat
swat.
one, somebody's gonna get irritated.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But the queen comes in this little thing, and you have to, when you get these from whoever you get them from, these are just kind of generic bees. They may all be of the same breed, because there's Russians, and there's Koreans, and there's Italians, and all kinds of different
Of course you
strains
do.
of bees.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you do. Anyway, then this won't be related to that. The bees won't be related. So this queen, all these workers have to get used to this queen and her stink. So what you do is I'll show you all these parts in a minute. You take this box, you turn it upside down, and you dump them into the box. Okay? Then you take this little queen thing, and it usually comes with a cork. You can, although the very first one I get, they ate the cork. They ate the cork. They didn't eat it, consume it, but they chewed it up. Okay. A lot of people take a marshmallow, a little mini marshmallow without coloring, and they'll hang it on one of these frames. And then go away for 3 days and come back, and the bees will have eaten the plug away, but that gives them the 3 days to get used to her smell and accept the queen. They have to accept the queen. Once they do that, then all is good, and then you've got a working
Right.
What
What if they don't?
They will.
They will?
They,
Very rarely they'll kill the queen.
Will you have to get a new one?
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna make one.
Have you had?
they'll make,
I've
they'll
not
make
had,
a new
I've not had to kill one. Mine's always been accepted.
Yeah, mine have always been accepted too. The other way you can get, which is what I prefer. By the way, these are the ones that usually come across the country on the back of the trucks. So in the book, when they're talking about the truck that fell over and all that, they're usually in boxes like this, where they're all loose, rather than in what's called a nuke box. This is a nuke box. I've had them wooden, I've had them cardboard. This is the nicest one I've ever had. It's a nice little plastic box. It holds half of the frames that this one does. So when you're ready and you get your box like this, what it contains is some frames that look like this that are already have honey in them, already have eggs laid in them, already have some brood starting to hatch,
and they come with their own queen.
and a bunch of bees in there, and their own queen that they've already accepted. When I'm getting 2 new ones. Tough winter this year, and I get 2 nukes. I'd rather have nukes at this altitude because they establish faster than these. Sometimes these take a long time to establish because they have to go pull new comb. This is why one of the reasons I save the old ones that have comb, because they'll reuse it, even though other bees did it. So we've got a 5-frame nuke coming, 2 of them, and they will have the queen already accepted, already settled in, and what happens is I take these out and just put them in here and fill up the frame. I put them in the middle so that they expand out, and then pretty soon I'll have a full hive. Okay, so you get them one of 2 ways. This box holds 10 frames, and what you do, this is the first thing that you do is get the bees to establish in here, and when it gets about 90% full, because you can take these out of here and then look at the bees and they're crawling all over the thing. That's what the book was talking about. They were talking about all of a sudden, you look at them and you can move them around, and you don't want to move fast though. If you move slow and deliberate, and then you can spot the queen and do whatever you need to do with that. they have these dandy little tools that look like this, go on the side. So if you're going to be, excuse me there, Ebenezer, if you're going to do this, you can just take these out and hang them while you're working with the others. And they'll be fine, the bees won't go anywhere, they'll just stay right there. And, because sometimes you need to rotate the frames around, depending on the shape of your hive. So you've got your hive going. Then after you've decided that it's about 90% full, what you're going to do is, if you've got the time, the length of year to do this, you might want to put on another one of these right on top of it and build up another set of brood. If you don't have a whole lot of time and your season is shorter, you put what, this is called a queen excluder. The queen is huge. It's big, it's twice as big as the rest of them. So all the little worker bees can go through that screen, but the queen can't. So it keeps her down here with all the brood, and in the areas where they're going to be laying brood. And then what you do is you put on what's called a honey super. And that way your honey is clean without any dead bee parts in it. You filter it anyway, but then it's got, you know, and this one's fully on both sides full. But then they will start laying, because the workers like to go lay up from the bottom up, and they will start putting honey in here. And if you're real lucky, then you get honey out of all these things. And then you put it in a centrifuge. And either a manual that you turn or an electric one, and you slide these in here. You have to do what's called capping, because they put little caps on each one of these little cells. You cut the cap off, let the honey drain out, spin it out with a centrifuge into a big bucket, spout on it, filter it, and you've got your honey. The other things that I know they were mentioning in that book, little tools. This is a smoker. You basically put your smoky stuff in here. We use newspaper and pine shavings and just about anything that will burn really well and create a lot of smoke, and light it, and there's bellows, and it keeps the smoke going, and then you just, and they'll go down, and then you can handle them really well. Sometimes, if you've got a bee will do what's called propolizing, and it ends up like gluing these things together. Isn't that a screen? Yeah. So you have to take your hive tool. This is a hive tool. It's even mentioned in the book. You have to split these apart. And then a lot of times they're so heavy, it's nice to have a grabber to pull the honey thing. If these are full of honey, they're really heavy. And when you get a 10-frame hive full of honey, it's 100 pounds. I mean, it's a lot of weight on there. And the bees are really nice, but let's say you don't want them on there, so you take this really soft bristle brush, and you can just kind of scrape them off. And they don't get bothered. They don't get bothered at all. They'll just go down in there. And anyway, what else have I got here today? Oh, yeah. We have to help the bees as much as we can. There are aggressive wasps, things that don't like bees. They like to attack them. So we help them out as much as possible. Take that off for a minute. And use what's called an entrance reducer. I think they talked about that in the book, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it will reduce the entrance so they can take care of it and guard it easier. Usually you put it on the smallest setting so they get in and out of it, just that little hole. Instead of trying to protect the entire porch, they only have to protect this one little place. Okay? This is in the early spring and late fall and over the winter, I'll feed the bees. This is one way to do it. There's like a whole bunch of different. I don't use this anymore. I used to. This is called a Boardman feeder, and it's a mason jar with little holes on it. And the power of the vacuum holds it in there, and the bees get in there and crawl around on it. This is what they use. It sets in here. This pushes into here. and the bees can go in here, get a drink, and take it out. And I put a sugar water solution in there, which changes depending on the season. If I want to encourage them to pull comb in the spring, I use a 1-to-1 solution. If I'm feeding in the wintertime, I'll use a 2-to-1 solution. Okay.
But then you never feed liquid, when your temperatures are going to drop to freezing.
Yeah, like
So
stay
then-
there, yeah.
Then there is a product, and I know for anyone who does any baking, there's fondant that you buy in sheets, and you just lay that in the top of your feeder, and they will come and feed off of that, and then when you remove it in the spring, you'll see that most of it will be gone. But that's how they, if they don't have enough of their own honey stored within the hive, they are going to be hungry, and so by supplementing their feed, then you're providing them with the energy they need.
Yeah, you can
To
also
keep
give
that
them,
hive at 95 to 98 degrees, you know.
yeah, they also,
It's good to be
the
clean.
fondant that you get commercially also contains
The
nice
enzymes.
little good things for the bees.
And the
to help
propolis for the protein and.
Yeah, and it has propolis mixed into it. The propolis is the protein, and the sugar is the nectar is their
Carbohydrate.
carbohydrates that they have to eat. So,
So the centrifuge, is it like a big machine or?
yeah, it's imagine a 5-gallon bucket, made out of, a 5-gallon bucket,
Oh,
made out of metal.
yeah.
One stacks on top of the other.
Yeah.
There's a motor on top and a rod that goes down, and you slip in the frames, like 4 to 6 at a time, and it spins them,
Oh, yeah.
and it drops down, and then you just open and it collects at the bottom, and you open a valve.
So that's how you harvest the honey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's filtered at that, yes.
I was just gonna have Sam or you talk about the honey that's in the stores and how it's not
True.
true
Yeah.
all honey.
mixed.
and that's a good segue to doing some tasting.
Yes.
Honey can legally be called honey if it's only 10% honey.
Wow.
They cut it with high fructose corn syrup. A lot of the honey, probably most of the honey, unless it's guaranteed to be 100% pure honey, is cut honey. So if you go into a restaurant and get these little packages, little squeeze packets to put in your coffee, that's high fructose corn syrup. Maybe 10% honey if it's called honey.
When did that regulation go into
Oh,
effect?
that's been that way a long time.
So I got a notice from Costco saying the honey you bought was not 100% honey.
Yeah.
So, but if it says 100% wild harvested honey,
Yes.
it has to be?
And yes, it has to be, and what you also want to look for is honey that is not highly, you want it cold processed and not highly processed.
Not
You-
pasteurized.
Not pasteurized. If it's pasteurized, they've heated it up and killed it. So it's no longer a live product. And, let's see, there was somewhere else I was gonna go with this. Oh, jeez. Did anybody notice that I take a nap while I'm standing?
So basically, stay away from the little things that look like teddy bears.
A lot of them.
A lot.
Some of them.
We can buy teddy bears to put our own honey in. I mean,
Yes. But again, you want to check. Oh yeah, we do filter, and all of these companies filter it to get the bee poop and the body parts out and stuff. But you know, it's not harmful, so you can't die from it. So we've got little tasting sticks up here. This will be
The one in the little mason jar is our honey, and the one over here is this, it's ambrosia honey.
We did have an experience with a guy up in Pueblo that we used to go into his shop all the time, and you know, he was always so nice to us. So I took him a little jar of honey, and then the next 2 times we were there, we missed him, And then he tracked us down and he said, I've been wanting to talk to you, and it's like, and it was like, and he said, about your honey. And it was like, oh, okay, what? And he said his wife, when she tasted it, said, what have we been eating up till now? You know, and so they were, he said, she absolutely loved your honey, and it's like, so get bees. You have a backyard, have some bees. We also, several years ago, it was when the kiddos were still in the old school, a preschool class came to our house and to learn about the bees, and we had the apple trees happened to be in bloom at the time, and we had them all seeded, and so we did the bee program, and they got to see the bees working, and then they had warm biscuits with fresh honey on them, and the teacher said that was the first time she had ever seen her kids lick their plates. And it was like, oh, you know. But, I mean, it was so special for us, but it was also special for the kiddos to have been able to come and just sit and have an outdoor classroom experience. So,
Can I ask you a question? Is it wise to, I mean, we'll grow flowers to feed the bees. What about putting water in the garden?
yes.
It's a good thing.
How deep?
Well, that's just it. You don't want it too deep. You want to give them a shallow, like a rock, so that they can have some places. Otherwise, they will drown.
Or dish with marbles or something.
Yeah.
Gravel.
Yeah, they do need water.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Have a thought. Anyway, like to invite you up, and I have some brochures here about inviting bees to your property and bee facts and stuff like that. Feel free to take one. It's from one of the professional groups. There's a package of seeds here. They're a kind of loose, real loose planting. It's wildflower mix. So mix it with sand, loosen the soil, spread it around, press it into the ground with water. I mean, it's a typical thing. But I think it was, did Jamie find the stickers on the little?
Yeah, found those on Amazon. They're
Yeah,
fun
Jamie
little-
found these wonderful little faux wax press things that have a bee on them. They're cute. Anyway, help yourself to some wildflowers. Do take a taste of each one and compare it.
No double dipping.
No double
No
dipping.
double.
And see if you can taste the difference. Taste
Oh, good.
one or the other first. That's ours, that's not.
He may come to fun night, I don't know for sure.
Okay, this
He's
week.
coming next Tuesday.
Is this the
Well, we had
end?
a year of wait.
Guy, guy, is this the end?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm so sorry. We didn't take a bow.
Oh, thank you all for coming.
Thank